Hello everyone, welcome to Axumawian Media Network. Today we have a short interview with the VOR focused on Ethiopia, Eritrea invasion of Tigray and the Russia invasion in Ukraine. VOR, welcome to Axumawian Media Network.
Hi there. Great to be here.
Great. Can you update us like the general information, general updating how's going on this Russia invasion on Ukraine?
Yeah, so I think you asked me about the Ukraine. So yeah, we're in day 11 now of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and as had anticipated, this wasn't going to be a 72-hour conflict where we would see the Russians just roll into to Kiev. Now they did try that, and it has not resulted in a battlefield victory for them in terms of just being able to roll right into to Kiev. The Ukrainians are providing a lot more resistance than what many people thought that they would be able to challenge the Russians, and it continues, and it will probably continue for some time.
Hmm. Yeah. So, how do you think it's gonna affect to the Ethiopia Eritrea invasion on the Tigray war?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's I don't want to call it a stalemate. I think at this point we continue to see the Tigrayan Defense Forces operate along the eastern border areas of the Afar region. They've have had some military success in terms of capturing some border towns along the shared Afar Tigrayan border. They've also had some fairly significant battlefield victories in terms of the destruction of some Afar regional militia units that were operating along the Tigray Afar border. And we've heard repeatedly that some of these Afar regional forces are requesting additional support from the Abiy loyalist formations. However, it would appear at this time there's just no will on the part of these Abiy loyalists to provide further troop support to the engagements that are occurring in the Afar region. I think at this point, the ENDF is aware that in all probability the TDF is not going to advance very far into the Afar region, so it really doesn't serve any purpose. And at the same time, the ENDF, the Abiy loyalists, really have their hands full in Oromia at this point. They are challenged by the Oromo Liberation Army and have seen themselves a series of setbacks even after the Tigrayan Defense Forces had withdrawn from the northern Amhara region. You have to understand, I don't believe at this point the ENDF is in very good shape. It obviously has the ability to deploy drones and some fixed wing assets, but the ground forces of the ENDF have really have been really just blasted over the course of the last year. They've lost a lot of fighters. They've lost a lot of battlefield commanders in the course of the war that took place during the occupation of Tigray, and then the counterattack, the counter invasion by the TDF into the Amhara region. And that has resulted in what we see now is fundamentally a very, very weak military in terms of the ENDF. The same with the Eritrean military. There's not a lot of reports in terms of the casualties sustained by the Eritrean army. We do know that in fact occurred. The Eritrean army withdrew from a lot of the cities that it occupied in the northern Tigray region, and only occupies a smaller area in western Tigray at this point. And I think at this point, all parties are suffering some from a certain amount of battle fatigue. They've been fighting for well over a year now. There has been tremendous losses on all sides. So the capacity to initiate large-scale ground operations at this point have been reduced.
Hmm. Yeah, and except like some of the channels like your channel, and there wasn't any attention on the 15 month and plus Ethiopia-Eritrea invasion of Tigray. And what do you think that like right now we see like on the Russia Ukraine, like the whole world is like watching it, of course, like Russia big military, but it was one of the biggest war until the Russia started warring on Ukraine and Ethiopia and Eritrean invasion on Tigray, but it wasn't anywhere on the news that much. What do you think that?
Yeah, no, that was one of the main reasons why I started covering the conflict. Again, there was very, very little information coming out of the region, especially on mainstream media. I mean, it was very, very rarely covered. The only time it really started to get covered was in the early stages of the conflict, when the TDF had taken control of some of those short range ballistic missiles and launched some assets towards the capital of Eritrea once the invasion had started. But yeah, it's something that's not even, I don't want to say headlines. It's not even taken really any format on media outlets in which they are talking about, meaning media is talking about what is happening or occurring. And quite frankly, it's been much more bloody, and in terms of casualties have been far greater in this conflict than even what we're seeing now in Ukraine. Now, obviously, you have two industrialized powers going at each other in Europe. So yes, that is going to take precedence in terms of what the world is reporting.
Mm-hmm.
But the intensity in terms of just the sheer magnitude of the fighting that we've seen, again, is on par with many of the great conflicts we've seen over history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a lot of people was expecting like NATO will stop Russia. In your analysis, do you think like NATO can stop Russia?
No, I don't. So I think what is happening right now is the media has set this narrative that it would be a very quick operation by the Russian Federation into Ukraine. And most people watching the news believe that
What kind
if
of the same like the Ethiopian government say like for 3 weeks or 2 weeks like law enforcement on Tigray invasion, but it lasts like 2 years almost now.
yeah, no, they thought it was going to be very quickly, but again, the Ukrainian military is a fairly capable force. It's not like it was in 2014, so it's completely different ball game in terms of the military equation that's on the ground, and it's going to get worse, and there's going to be this pressure to draw in NATO assets. Either we start hearing now about no-fly zones and all this ridiculous talk of that happening, and that's going to lead to a major conflict between NATO and Russia, and eventually you'll probably see other countries start to become involved, such as China, and other nation states will start to take sides, and quite possibly lead to a third world war.
Yeah. So one of the thing you update and many times on the challenge and on this one as well about TB2 drones operating on Tigray, Ethiopia and Eritrea Tigray war, and they make tremendous damage on Tigray, including civilians and in Armenian as well, Azerbaijan and Armenian, and so can like TB2 drones now make difference to defend like Ukraine to Russia?
Yeah, so yeah, the drones are present, and to my surprise, they are continuing to operate over Ukraine. I think what the Ukrainians have done is transition from using air bases to using highways. So if you have a fairly flat piece of land that's been paved, you can take off, you can launch a drone, and as long as you have support personnel to do maintenance on the drone, and individuals to arm the drone with munitions, they can take off and operate. And quite frankly, I'm surprised that the Russians have not been able to jam the area around Ukraine to prevent those drones from operating, but they're still taking flight. Now, will it change the course of the conflict? Probably not. I would say it's more of a tactical nuisance than a game changer in terms of what we're seeing on the ground right now in Ukraine. The Ukrainians don't have a lot of them. They have probably 20 to under 20 of those Turkish drones. But nonetheless, they're present. They're still operating them, and they're somewhat of a nuisance to the Russian forces. Mm-hmm. Also damages morale quite because I don't think the individual Russian soldier was anticipating that they would be attacked by drones this late in the conflict.
Yeah. So why is Ukraine like? I mean, a Turkish very make involved on these small countries like Armenian and almost was genocide. You know, Tigray right now is genocidal war, supporting the dictatorships like why or another invasion. Why is that? Is it just they care for money or why?
No, yeah, exactly. It's money and it's resources. It's resources that can turn into money at a later date. But obviously, there's been some agreements with the Abiy government in power in Addis Ababa that at some point there would be a benefit to the Turkish government in terms of what is happening. Obviously, if Abiy Ahmed is no longer in power, then all those negotiations and agreements that have been made with the Turkish government would be off the table. So the Turks don't want to lose that, and at the same time, again, they are continuing to supply. Now, I do think that because of this conflict in Ukraine, we may see a reduction, especially in terms of precision-guided munitions being delivered to the Abiy government. I mean, those munitions, the MAML, the MAML missile, is not infinite in its production capacity. So they're going to have to figure out who gets the MAML missile and who doesn't. And probably right now, NATO is probably willing to pay more by proxy through Ukraine in terms of getting those MAML missiles to Ukraine as opposed to Abiy Ahmed.
Yeah, actually, I was wondering, like, as United States, and do you think like the Americans and the EU were aware what Abiy Ahmed and Isaias Afwerki was doing from start day, especially like since the start of the Tigray invasion? If you see, they have like a long wing of China's, and they have like the UAE drones and TBT drones. The TBT drones are like the optical part of it is made in the Western, in Canada and US. So and Turkish is like part of the NATO, but practically Abiy Ahmed and Isaias Afwerki are doing like against of AU and like US. Even if you see on the United Nations, we're gonna go to some question, but Russia, Eritrea was the only country support like Russia, and Ethiopia doesn't even like denounce the invasion. So do you think like there was just a misunderstanding from the US and from the Europeans to support Abiy Ahmed and Isaias Afwerki?
No, I mean, there's been a history with the United States and Afwerki, especially kind of if we go back 10 years in terms of the global war on terrorism and that sort of issue. We meaning the United States did work with Afwerki, among other despotic nation states around the world, especially during the post 9/11 era. So I don't think we're seeing that kind of relationship now. I do believe there's a bill that's trying to get pushed through out of New Jersey, I believe it is. That would sanction Eritrea, would sanction further the Abiy Ahmed government as well. So if you're wishing to see that actually happen, then I would definitely call your congressman and
yeah, I mean I understand it's not directly, but that's what I say, probably just like misreading between those two guys. because UAE and like Turkey kind of stopped by US. The UAE is like allied with the US, but the UAE was like the big part of supporting this war. And UAE was like really friend with Isias Afwerki. They were at the beginning was like drones was like take off from the Eritrea and later on from Ethiopia. So I mean they already know like Iranians was like supporting, but how do you support like if they stop those drones, TDF can take care of those like as Afwerki and in fact even the Ethiopian military as well. But indirectly, they were using like high tech from the Turkish and UAE, and which is made in United States and like bombing in Tigray. That's what I mean, but it's not directly, of course.
Yeah, no, it is, and again, very very complicated. It's even if you look at the United Arab Emirates in terms of just recently when the United Nations was trying to reprimand Russia for its activities recently, the United Arab Emirates basically abstained and didn't vote on it. So uh, while they do they do have a certain amount of autonomy, and the United States doesn't just have that ability like it used to just to tell a nation state exactly what to do and they would toe the line. There's just it's again very very complicated, and unfortunately I think there is resource centric issues in terms of the United Arab Emirates, the Turks, and even the Chinese in terms of the geopolitical strategic situation in regards specifically to Ethiopia, that's having these nation states support Abiy Ahmed.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. In one of your channel, what I listening was like about the Russia invasion in Ukraine. You say like the Russian militaries don't have any option; they just have to push forward. And I just want for the audience, like, what does it mean? Like, why Russia cannot stop the invasion, like Ukraine?
I'm sorry, it was a little cut off. I didn't quite hear that.
Yeah, you say one of in your channel like the Russians military attacking on Ukraine is like at this point they don't have any option just to stop it. Why they don't have any options? Like why would they cannot Russians they can stop invasion in Ukraine right now?
So I think you're asking me why the Russians can't stop
Yeah,
the invasion of Ukraine.
yeah.
Well, again, it goes back many many years, and you have to understand that at one point the Ukraine was part of the old Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, and a host of in those specific nations that were part of the Soviet Union proper have become members of NATO.
Mm-hmm.
And Ukraine was kind of the last straw for Vladimir Putin, as it was looking very likely at some point the Ukrainians would in fact join NATO. And I think you have to look. You can't just say the Russians are evil and they're just doing this to invade another country. You have to look at history, and you have to look at World War II. You have to look at before World War II, and that is the way Vladimir Putin is thinking. He is thinking, okay, well, the Ukraine becomes within the sphere of Western influence, and we fast forward 10, 20 years from now, and something changes. Well, that puts possible hostile forces within just a couple of 100 miles from Moscow, in theory, and given the very close relationship that once existed, obviously between Russia and Ukraine in the kind of the pre-Soviet collapse, that was the last straw for them, and they've decided to take action and quite possibly look to bring Ukraine back into fold, whether that's a puppet state or just to seize the state entirely, which it looks like they're trying to do right now. That's the discussions that anyway that are coming out of the Kremlin. That is their strategy right now. They're done talking. They felt like they've talked long enough, and again, just the military option is just the extension of the political option by other means.
Mm-hmm. Okay, makes sense. And I was really surprised. I see a lot of Russians was protesting in the first war against the war invasion in Ukraine. But when you came to the Ethiopia and Eritrea against Tigray war, including the African Union was silent and supporting to the war. And why do you think like these Africans? I didn't hear any African nation was denouncing the war. What do you think these African nations and the African Union become a tool for these wars? Is that because of corruption and kind of like confusing for many people?
Yeah, again, there's a host of nations involved, and each nation, whether it be in Africa, whether it be in Europe and Asia, has their own motivations in terms of what they're looking at and what they're willing to say and what they're willing not to say. Especially in terms of the conflict that's taking place now in the Horn of Africa. So again, because it sits low on the radar, certain nations just aren't going to be as vocal at the risk of upsetting another nation that could be a closer ally with the nations that are said involved in said conflict. They're just not going to do it.
Mhm. Okay, so again, on the United Nations meeting about the Russia-Ukraine invasion, and Eritrea was the only country votes against of it, supports Russia, and Ethiopia wasn't even vote and not even denouncing the war invasion. Most of the older countries they denounced the invasion. So did that surprise you? Eritrea vote for Russia or?
Yeah, no, Eritrea did not denounce and fully supports the Russian Federation. And Eritrea, Isaiah Afwerki fully understands he's being isolated, and he still has to have friends in the world, and his one friend that he can claim right now would be Russia, possibly China, as he gravitates away from the West, and that pressure is only going to become more and more once it becomes well known what has actually happened inside of the Tigray region. Again, a lot of things have not come to light yet that eventually will come to light, and at some point, in retrospect, people will look back like they do now on Rwanda and what happened there. And but right now, Abiy Ahmed, Isaiah Afwerki have made it very difficult to get information. If you're not a state-sponsored media outlet, you can't operate and cover what's happening there. And those impartial outlets that are covering what or have tried to cover what's happening have ended up being arrested. I mean,
Yes.
I don't think you can call what exists in Ethiopia now a democracy. I think Ethiopia has Abiy Ahmed quite possibly for a while. I think he's going to be in power for quite possibly a while, unless he's either assassinated or removed from office somehow in a coup d'état or something like that. I don't believe he has any intent of leaving office.
Of course, he's not. He's becoming like good student for Isaias Afwerki. Actually, he's doing everything what Isaias is doing. It so may not, yeah. And the only option was like that's why we're trying to focus like the involvement of like third another countries on the Tigray war. Because the one of the reasons the Ethiopian military was like dismantled is because they don't have a vision to attack Tigray. That's why the TDF was like beating them because most of the soldiers from ANDF like they don't know what is the goal. Fighting like with the foreign force that your own country, part of your country, like Tigray. But this like TBT drones and especially the Arab countries make it difficult for this war to prolong and damage Tigray. Makes complex.
Yeah, they have to get Western Tigray back and get that border back with the Sudan, and I think things would start to get better. And I think that's on the horizon. Again, it sounds like in terms of the military equation, they're just some Amhara regional militia units that are in western Tigray, and then obviously the Eritrean army in the kind of the northwest quadrant.
Okay, yeah. And after Russia invades on Ukraine, like Elon Musk, the satellite internet provided freely on Ukraine, which is good. But Tigray was blocked out like more than 15 months. Do you think it will be helpful if Tigray got free internet and get the information what's going on there?
I apologize again. Very, very difficult for me to hear. It's really broken up at this point.
Yeah, I was asking like Elon Musk, he has like the Starlink satellite internet provided to Ukraine. So I was just asking if it is that possible to get in Tigray and to get the communication blackout. Oh, okay. Connection is not good enough. So uh, can you hear me now, VR? Okay, very broken. Okay. We almost come to the end of the program anyways. VOR, and thank you for your time. And if you have anything to say at the end, I'll give you a couple of minutes if you can hear me. Sorry, we
Yeah,
apologize
absolutely.
for the network. Yeah.
Yep, great being here. And again, apologies for the technical difficulties. Hopefully we'll get
Yes.
to resort it later. But yep.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for
everyone. Please share and subscribe Axumawian Media Network, and also share and subscribe Military and Foreign Affairs Network. And for today, we end here. Thank you, everyone.